When you're brought in to a company to help with their sales, what are typically your relationships and interactions with the marketing team, whoever's doing the marketing? What do you observe from there?
A lot of the time it's siloed, Jake, because they're like, okay, yeah, we're generating some leads, we're running Google ads, we're running Facebook ads. No, we just want to start closing more of them. So again, it's like we're dealing with the surface level challenges. We're not really getting to the fundamental of like, okay, what's the goal of the company? What's the strategy we're going to take to hit the goal? And what's the fundamental plan to do it? A lot of the time it depends on the size of the company. The way I've explained that, that's typically, let's say, a 7-figure company, right? Who are like, okay, we have something put together, but we want to start optimizing. Generally, the 7-figure companies, it's like, it's optimization. They've got everything to a decent standard, just they want it a bit better.
Yeah.
To directly answer your question, I would say a new function has started to peer its head to try to solve this, and it's called, I don't know if you've seen this, but it's called RevOps, right?
Mm-hmm.
Companies are starting to hire people to make sure this works, right? Head of revenue operations to make sure that marketing and sales are kind of working together. A lot of the time, though, that's with companies who have budget. Where I've seen that trend is usually you look to the US, you look to Silicon Valley, fast growing B2B SaaS startups. They'll be able to get one in, pay 250K a year or 500K a year, whatever it is, and they'll take care of that. The reality is, a lot of businesses, they don't have the budget for that. So
Right.
they won't be able to hire that person full time, or they can hire. I had a client who worked with this year who basically hired someone to create that function within the business, but not in a full time capacity. They built the RevOps structure, and then they had the CEO execute that structure.
Have you seen some really good examples that you were thrilled with of working with a company on their sales strategy, and then you're able to see marketing support that strategy in really powerful ways? Can you give us a couple specific examples?
Yeah, I would say the best example I've seen was when I worked with Time Doctor. At that stage, they had gotten to $21 million annual recurring revenue. Still bootstrapped, didn't take outside funding, but their marketing and sales really worked together. Essentially, marketing was driving the leads, right? They were driving a 14-day free trial to try the software. When new signups came in, sales would then call them because they knew over time there were certain things that had to happen to make people sticky to the software. And generally what they were finding is there was two big things. One is if they could get like 3 to 4 employees of one company on the trial. The other one was, could they get the person who signed up in the trial onto a demo? That's how they were able to grow so fast. Honestly, I still haven't seen marketing and sales being coordinated as effective as I saw with that business.
That's awesome.
And they had
Mhm.
really effective people. So it's like the 3 Ps of business that Michael Gerber talks about: it: people, product, process, right? Really good product, really good process, and then they had really good people.
And what's interesting about what you just described is that the marketing department really understood their role, not just branding and reputation and colors, but we need to tee up, to use a baseball term, or is that a golf term?
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry,
you're the American. I'll let you comment on that. I've no knowledge of baseball.
maybe that's a golf term. Sorry,
Yeah.
my ignorance is showing. But the marketing team understood that if we can promote this, make some videos and ads and bring in some influencers or people with YouTube channels to sponsor videos that show demos, and then drive these 14-day free trials for people who have issues with these pain points. That sets up the sales team. Okay, volleyball for a spike, right? With a they come in then say, hey, well, you're using it. Do you have anyone else who's having this problem in the team? Oh yeah, Joe down the, oh, can we get Joe on the free trial as well? And you guys can compare notes. And because then they knew that those were the things best combined. So it's a really good example of marketing understanding that the tactic is part of a larger strategy, and in the sequence, a lot of times marketers can get really distracted with all the, hey, the founder wants a presentation fixed. I mean, technically, yeah, that's marketing, right? The founder looks good in front of the bank. He's trying to negotiate a better rate or something like that. But there's all of that distracts marketers, and I think salespeople as well. There's all these little things that can distract a salesperson. A salesperson loves to see new leads come in, but I've had issues training and coaching salespeople who just don't want to go back and call people who have fallen off their list. Same with marketers, right? There's a lot of shiny objects to distract us.
Yeah, and maybe just to add to that as well, of this being a great example of how to get marketing to work. The thing there, right? Sales, a lot of companies I'm working with love inbound leads. They're like, yes, we want inbound leads because the perception is they're easier to close. But again, it's not just an inbound lead comes in and that's going to turn into sale. You have to work the lead.
Yes.
For that company, Time Doctor, it worked so well. They figured out how to get the leads, but they were also actively working them.
So the 14-day free trial was already filtering out people who weren't ideal fits for them. So the actual marketing tactic was a filter and setting up sales with the best possible leads, very hot, very ready.
Yeah, and then from the sales perspective, you can go another step further before even reaching out to these leads. You can do some research or set up some lead scoring, lead criteria that'll basically be able to tell you, is it actually worth reaching out to this person at all? And then if you see that the email that's signed up, maybe it's like john@nike.com, you're like, well, damn, Nike is a big company and someone in the company is looking at our software, so yes, I'm going to go after that.
But like you said before, the bigger companies take longer to close. I have 2 companies that are like my big fish that I've been trying to work on, but they only do their marketing in 2 years contracts, right? They'll have a marketing company on tap for 2 years. So I'm having to wait another year for both of them because they still have a contract.
But I
need to nurture them.
Yeah.
And if I nurture them and I stay on it.
I'd be curious as well, like with those, well, this is me with my sales hat on. Sometimes if someone says they're on a contract, the other person is like, okay, they're on a contract, the conversation is done. Interesting. Is there any clauses in the contract for termination? Like what happens if this vendor actually isn't delivering? Oh, well, actually, yeah, we do have so now you're opening up their mind to the possibility where they could leave instead of just sitting on the information over on contract.
Yeah. That and just staying involved in helping them with advice and things like that gives you more time to become indispensable. What a lot of founders and company owners are dynamite people, right? They're just big personalities. Do you think that sometimes it's hard for them to turn what has built the company so far into a sales process? How do they balance their founder hustle and creativity with a more uniform sales process and pipeline?
If I'm to understand your question correctly, are you essentially asking me, as a founder, they can do a lot of different things, but what's the stage for them to really think, okay, maybe we need to formalize things a bit better, maybe we need to have a bit more structure?
Because during the first few months or years even, a lot of it ends up being just on the founder who's doing the fulfillment and onboarding and everything. You can imagine that for a lot of them, it's quite hectic and they jump on a call, they land the client, and they rush to fulfillment. At what point is that stage necessary? And what would you say to a founder who's feeling maybe cut out of the process?
Yeah, in the early stages of the company, it's important because really at the end of the day, the best salesperson in the business should be the founder. The reason being is they're going to be more intimately attached to the problem they're solving than anyone else. Generally, when, let's say, founders get to the stage of, okay, maybe there is another way to go about sales, is generally when revenue is plateauing or it's stagnant. The balance sheet doesn't lie. If you're doing the same level of revenue for the past 2 or 3 years, why is that? And a lot of the time it's because the founder is still doing everything.
It's the bottleneck, yeah? I think it stopped recording after an hour, so I started recording again.
Okay.
Can you answer that question one more time concisely? Sorry.
Yeah.
I think it cut off when you were talking about the founder being the bottleneck.
I can't, because I was talking about the finances.
Oh yeah, because there would be the bottleneck. The plateau is visible,
Yes.
but there's no arguing with that.
Yeah. So the founder will typically realize by looking at the financials that revenue isn't growing, revenue is either stagnant or declining. They realize they can't keep doing everything anymore. And so the question becomes, if our revenue isn't growing and I want the revenue to grow, what needs to change? This is when they get to the stage of, maybe instead of being in the business, I need to start working on the business. So it's not typically just, okay, what do we need to do with sales? It's a fundamental question of, how does my role need to change for me to bring the company to where I want to bring it to? And maybe one part of that is eventually getting myself out of sales so that I can have other people to sell for me. I get my time back and I have more energy to work on. I'm not going to say more leverage, because sales is one of the most leveraged things you can do in your business, but definitely from like a strategic level of like, how can I have more time to work on the higher level things that are really going to move the business forward?
Right. We're about an hour into our interview. Alan, can you share for business owners or sales teams that are listening, if these are hitting pain points, don't you have some resources they can look into to start working on this themselves? And also, how could you help them as well?
A lot of what we've been talking about regarding challenges businesses are having is that they're making actions based off false assumptions around what their actual problems are. So if you go to our website, we basically give a free sales audit. If they go to aptsalesconsulting.com, you can get a free sales audit. We have a questionnaire, list of questions that you go through, and then once you go through that, we'll actually give you a report to outline where the problems are in your sales process. I would say that's probably step one if you want to shed more light on what's going on in your business from a sales perspective. And then two, from the results from that, if you want more clarity, then just book a call, because then I can give you direct feedback on what's actually going on and why it's happening the way it's happening.
I'm just out of curiosity, can you tell me why one of your prospects, your inquiries, did not go with your services recently? Can you give us some reasons? Maybe humorous, maybe not, but why did someone go, you know what, I'm not proceeding with your consulting services?
There are far more reasons why someone would not do business with you versus why they would. This could be a small thing. Let's say, for instance, you've managed the sales process really well, given them a great presentation, and informed them what the fee will be. Part of their brain might think, oh, I can do this myself. That's one I've gotten recently. And what I'd say to that is 100%. You can do it yourself. Realistically, what tends to happen is the business will reach back out to us in 6 months, because not only has the problem not been solved, it's been made a lot worse. And I had that call last week with a company where I spoke with them maybe 6 months ago, and it was very clear what the problem was and what the solution was to the problem. We couldn't agree on the financials, so we both walked away. The 6 months that went by, they worked on the problem and they've destroyed their business model. They'll see a lead problem, maybe a sales problem. And then it's like things aren't changing, revenue isn't growing. Maybe it's the business model. And they start tinkering with a lot of different things. Now, this is the recent chat I had with them a week ago. It's like, I wouldn't touch this company anymore. Like, it's gone so far gone, it's like, I can't help.
Yeah.
So the big thing, and this is kind of a term used a lot in sales, it's the cost of inaction, right? So sometimes I'll explain it to them. It's like, okay, if we decide not to work together and you go your own way, typically this will happen. And then sometimes they'll say, okay, we'll try it our own way anyway. And then unfortunately, reality will present itself.
Yeah, because you're a dispassionate person who wants to see them grow. They're not dispassionate. They're emotional. They have too much baggage, right? I have too much baggage with my own company. Most people who lead companies do. We want to think that we are the visionary and strategist for our companies. We need outside mentors, outside consultants who don't have any emotional attachment. What I see a lot of is this worked before, or we've always done it this way, or we decided 5 years ago not to do this one thing. And it's still stuck in their head that that is still the status quo.
Yeah.
Well, I'll come in and just say, hey, I mean, this seems pretty straightforward. Here's what you should be doing and not wasting time on. They needed that fresh perspective. Thank you very much, Alan, for bringing all this insight. I really appreciate you also helping me over some lunches. There's things that you've recommended to us that we've implemented into our own sales process. Objection handling, making sure that we don't send over proposals, but go through them with the client on a call every time. With the time zones, it's like, oh, I just want to, here you go. You asked for a proposal, here it is. Just reply, confirm.
Yeah.
No, get on the call, handle the objections face to face. That's helped us a lot as well to get more of our ideal clients. So.
Great to chat as always.